Hello. So today I'll be presenting a PPT on an intelligent interface for relational databases. So let's dive right into the topic. So in the present computing world, most new generation database applications demand intelligent interface to enhance efficient interactions between the database and the users. The most accessible interfaces for databases must be intelligent and able to understand natural language expressions. In this paper, mapping of natural language queries to SQL is discussed. The authors propose a general architecture for an intelligent database interface and also a real implementation of such a system which can be connected to any database. One of the main characteristics of this interface is domain independence, which means that the interface can be used with any database. This also provides an ease of configuration. So in recent times, talking to a computer in a natural language such as plain English is always a dream that drives the progress of a human-computer interaction network. I mean, wouldn't it be so much easier to just talk with a computer how you would talk with another human being? So this is exactly what the natural language interface to databases permits the users to do. And it also helps in providing access to information without requiring knowledge of programming or database query languages. And there are four kinds of natural language interface to databases frameworks. So the first one is the template-based approach. The first type of framework is based on pattern matching. In this system, some patterns are written for different types of queries, and these patterns are executed after the queries are entered. The main advantage of this is that there's no elaborate parsing, and the modules of interpretation are required, and the systems are very easy to implement. The second one is syntax-based approach. This method supposes a syntax-based approach where a parsing algorithm is used to generate a parse tree depending on the user's queries. It is used especially in the application-specific database systems, and a database query language must be provided by the system to enable the mapping from parse tree to the database query. The third one is the semantic grammar approach. Now, this uses semantic grammars where syntactic processing techniques and semantic processing techniques are used together. But this method has a disadvantage where this approach needs a specific domain knowledge, and it's difficult to adapt to that system or adapt that system to another domain. And the fourth one would be intermediate representation language based approach. So some intermediate representation languages can be used to convert the statements in natural language to a formal query language. So the user defines the types of domains which database refers using and is a hierarchy in a built-in domain editor. Queries are first transformed into a Prolog-like language like LQL and then into SQL. Methodology. We design an intelligent layer which accepts common users' imperative sentences as input and converts them into standard SQL queries to retrieve data from relational databases based on knowledge base. The main characteristics of the system would be that the system is domain independent and the configuration process is automatic, which is what makes this so easy to adapt to new domains. The interface can also be easily and automatically configured, and the interface relies mainly on the metadata set, the semantic set for the tables and the attributes. The primary advantage would be that it conceals the complexity involved in the information retrieval. So it's hidden from unqualified user queries. All those unqualified user queries are hidden, so which provides an ease of access. Our system accepts users' natural language sentences as input, parses them semantically, and builds an SQL query for the database. So you just have to say something in your normal conversing language, and the software automatically converts them into an SQL query. So our system is composed of two modules, a preprocessor and a runtime processor. The preprocessor is used to generate the domain dictionary. Dictionaries used by the existing NLIDBs are created manually or semi-automatically. The preprocessor also creates the rules that can be edited by the system administrator. Our system addresses the semantic parsing through the use of rules that are generated by the preprocessor. So the set of rules that will go into semantically translating the normal language into an SQL query or any other sort of query is done by the preprocessor, and the runtime processor uses these rules and tries to match the input words with predefined data structures, tables, and attribute names from the database schema. The rules describe the relations between the table and its attributes. The authors implemented the present system in Java with MySQL and MS Access as databases. For the experiment, supplier part database and Northwind database of SQL Server were used, and a group of 5 students was asked to formulate the queries in English for the two databases. The students were explained about the schema, relationships between the tables, primary keys, etc. of the database for formulating the queries. Additionally, the students were given brief explanation about the kind of queries they could formulate. The resulting corpus consists of 20 queries for supplier part database and 40 queries for Northwind database. Most of the queries selected for the Northwind database involved 2 or more tables. The corpus of the queries for both databases were introduced to the interface to obtain the percentage of queries correctly answered and the queries with incorrect answers. The following were the results. So 75% of the queries, uh, which includes all 4 types of queries of the supplier part database, and 70% of the queries of the Northwind database translated were translated correctly. Main reason that caused these errors was due to insufficient information for processing. There's also some examples of the queries that could not be correctly translated. So get the full details of London suppliers and get the unit price of tofu. In both the queries, the attributes are not specified. The first query could be rephrased as get full details of suppliers whose native place is London, or get full details of suppliers whose city is London. So the attribute which refers to what London is, that has to be specified. Similarly, in the second query, attribute of the tofu is not specified. The second query, it could be rephrased as get the unit price of product whose name is tofu, and then the interface matches name with the attribute product name, and the query is translated correctly. So the conclusion of this system would be, it's a quite flexible, intelligent interface for database querying. The main advantage of the system would be it's like a natural language is used for querying the database and incorporated into the existing database systems. The presented system accepts flexible user queries and converts them into a standard SQL query. The expression mapping and stop words removal and semantic matching techniques have been utilized by the intelligent layer in the formation of the SQL query. The efficacy of the presented system has been demonstrated with the aid of experimental results as well. There's a lot of future scope for this kind of software. Despite of the achievements attained in this area, present day NLIDBs do not guarantee correct translation of queries in natural language to database languages. The most desirable characteristic of the NLIDBs that the researchers are proposing is domain independence, which means that interface can be used with different databases, and reconfiguration of the NLIDB from one domain to another is done automatically. And this would be the bibliography. And thank you for going through this amazing research paper with me. And I hope you learned a lot. Thank you.